What's up, guys? Today we have a little bit speculative and maybe for some of you guys doom and gloom video, but I think Polymorph is getting buffed. And before you clip this and send it to Jock, hear me out, and I have like argument for this. I'm not specifically saying that Polymorph is getting buffed, though I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and it would be so funny. But I think that we will probably get new mechanics to deal with CC, kind of like they tried to release the intercept stuff lately, but Plarium always does things on like intervals, you know, they think long ahead, they release something and they have already made the counters to it, or when they make new PvE content, they have champions that can actually do it, and they basically make the new content almost impossible to do, and then they will slowly drip out champions that can actually do that content. That's their MO, that's what they always do. And basically, a few years back, it was very hard speed meta, and then we got Reaction, and then a little bit afterwards we also got Stone Skin, and that shuffled the meta for a long time. And then Taras and Maritska came in, and the Fire Nation attacked. Anyway, that's a side quest. My point is that apart from the horrible Taras and Maritska meta, after that we moved into, like, you know, what we're dealing with right now. It's Mythicals and it's CC champions that can basically ignore Stone Skin in many different ways. If we take a look at the leaderboards from last Classic Arena reset, as you can see, practically every team has, probably every team, without going through it with a fine-tuned comp, pretty sure every team has either Galatir or Quixia. Many teams will have both of them, but at least you will not find a team without either one of those two or Armans. All of them basically can CC you through Stone Skin and don't really, it's not as big issue for them. And now we also got the new player in town, which is Gizmak, and he can go through Stone Skin kind of as well and like deal it with that way. Of course, he might have some other uses too, and it's not like there's not other champions like George that can ignore it. But what I'm saying is that it's becoming harder and harder to go second. It used to be kind of easy actually, a couple years ago. Right now it's pretty much impossible, and we have many other things that are not even represented in the Classic Arena leaderboards. Like outside of the hard CC, we have stuff like Marius, who does a triple hitter, and all of the 3 hits have a chance to remove Stone Skin, basically making him a very reliable way to get rid of it, and you can't even get polymorphed from that. And on top of all of this now, we're getting both feral and pinpoint sets, and that's the meta right now. Like CC is becoming super hard to deal with. Maybe some people are happy about it, some people not, but that's the fact that we have so many ways now to deal with CC, or not CC, but we have, well, both of them, but we have like so many ways to deal with Stone Skin and the counters against like speed teams and get your CC to it. And we did get the intercept stacks. Those are not very popular right now. Maybe we will get some champions that will be great at using them and it might become more popular. But I think the next step, I think next year we will shift to the other direction, that we are getting all of these crazy CC champions, and the old meta tanky guards like Nakarada, Duchess, Ursuka, all of those champions are like 0% usage and are completely dead. Surely, like in the old days or in the history of Raid, we have gone back and forth all the time. And if we just think about this a while back, like during the Taras and Maritska meta, it was technically like a stall meta, and now we've had speed meta ever since, and they keep implementing stuff that enables it. Like, anybody remembers Ursuka? Ursuka used to be a massive pain to deal with in Arena, like back in the old days when MacChan was making videos and you had teams with Duchess or some combination of like Duchess, Ursuka, Siphi, Candrathorn and Necret, like some combination of those champions. Those teams were crazy hard to deal with and super annoying. Now Ursuka is like a fat lady that you forgot about, and it almost seems like she will never become relevant. And who knows, they might implement some new mechanics that could revive champions like her and Necret, or they might implement new champions or mechanics to counter the speed teams. I'm not saying that this is gonna happen tomorrow or anytime soon. I'm saying that this is probably gonna be the next meta, and we keep going back and forth at this. Like, some of you guys might remember that if we talk about another barbarian champion, Valkyrie used to be meta like long time ago, and she was also a counter to the speed teams, just like Tormin was. And we have bunch of times gone back and forth, and yeah, now I feel like we're at the peak of speed teams. I feel like even in the old speed metas, they were not as strong as they are right now, and I'm sure Plarium is implementing some crazy go-second champions. Like, we have the new, like, for instance, Odin. I guess Odin has the passive that is kind of stally, but we haven't seen any new, like, ultra tanky god champions ever since, like, Ursuka and Necret. Probably I'm forgetting something, like, unless we, of course, unless we talk about the Ukraine duo, and I would rather not talk about them because I hate them. They ruined the game for a year. I still hate them, and I will hate them to my grave. This game would be better if they deleted them. Even still, like, I showed you the picture of top 20, can I pull it back? Every single team is running Marichka right now, even still. And Marichka is pretty much the only, like, stall meta champion we have right now. The champions are like the pool of champions that you see both in Classic Arena and Live Arena. Many of these mythicals are both nukers and revivers, but they are like hyper aggressive, and like somebody like Siegfried, for instance, technically he's tanky, but you know, he's tanky because he just doesn't take any damage. He's not actually tanky, and the teams are not building themselves to be stally and tanky like the old tank teams like Taras and Marichka defense or Ursuka defense or Necret defense. They are building them as like speed teams with aggressive nukers that have some utility, and they might also have like block revive or block damage and all kinds of stuff like that, but they're not actually tanky. Nobody here is running tanky team. Like, if we quickly inspect these teams, like the only tanky teams, I think we're gonna find a couple Taras teams somewhere. No? Okay, there's one Taras and Marichka team, but even that one is with the Siegfried. I mean, it's not like with the Necret or anything like that. I would not be surprised at, not even that way. I'm convinced that there will be something that will shift the meta to tankiness at some point. Like, if it doesn't happen naturally by them implementing super OP champions, I don't know if that's natural, but if it doesn't happen that way, I'm sure we will get like new Polymorph or new Stone Skin or something like that to shuffle the meta. I mean, that's how Plarium makes money. Like, people often like to think that, how does that saying go, that don't I don't know how you say it in English, but don't attribute like things to malice that you could attribute to incompetence. And I generally tend to think that people are not that stupid, and I think that people do make mistakes, but sometimes, or more often than not, they actually know what they're doing, and they're doing that on purpose. That's my cynical take on life. But I think especially if we talk about big company like Plarium, as much as we hate them or we have this love and hate relationship with them, and we keep calling them stupid for not being able to balance things and make the game like players want it to be. But obviously their goal is not to make the game the way we want it to be. Their goal is to make money, and one of the primary ways that they make money is that they make really cool and super OP champions that completely counter the old stuff and shuffle the meta. That's what happens generally at least once a year for PvP, but it used to happen even more often, like twice a year, until they released Taras and Maritzka, and they were just too OP, and they really had to think about it very hard. How can they release champions that are actually powerful enough to counter them and make them fade away from meta? And as you can see, Maritzka still hasn't faded away and doesn't seem to be fading away anytime soon, but I'm sure Plarium will try it at some point because they want you to buy shards, they want the old stuff to become obsolete. I mean, you might disagree with here, like feel free to debate with me about this on comments, but I think I'm convinced. I know that they're doing this on purpose. It's not like they are like, it's not like they don't know what they're doing. It's good for them, it's kind of good for the game, I would say. It keeps the game fresh and it keeps whales whaling and everybody else also striving to like improve and play the game. And that's what's gonna happen. Like, expect us to see tank meta next year. I would say that within next year it will be very realistic. I think we will see some super OP champions or probably some combination of new mechanics that challenge the CC meta. Stuff like Armand's Galatir or Grixia. It could be new form of Polymorph, it could be many different things, but I'm convinced that it will happen, and don't be surprised if that happens next year. Obviously, the thing that they are trying to monetize right now is the Mythic champions. So who knows if they do something exclusively for Mythic champions. Like for instance, right now we don't have faction guardians for Mythics, which I'm kind of surprised by. I wouldn't be like shocked at all if there was some, not faction guardians, but some other exclusive mechanic for Mythics. And maybe that could, for instance, make them insanely tanky and counter the speed meta, or who knows, but I'm convinced that it's not gonna stay like this. That's about it. I'm trying to break my record for making a short video, which doesn't happen very often, but I kind of had a fun topic that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Maybe trigger some people who hate Polymorph. I'll probably put some kind of Polymorph clickbait title or something like that. Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's what Plarium thinks as well. And yeah, if you have any good insight, any good suggestions about this, maybe you have leaks about Plarium's doing, then hit me up in the comments or DMs. But that's it. See ya.